بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome everybody to another Leaders Talk. Leaders Talk is an initiative from MEFMA to make sure that we have learning shared from leaders across the world with our members and beyond our member, whoever can sign in to Leaders Talk from around the globe, he can benefit from this session. It's really a session where we talk about experience more than knowledge. We will talk about knowledge, but it's focusing more on experience and how can you create your career path, how can you motivate yourself by looking at successful stories like the one that we will have today from Liz, one of our FM experts worldwide, and we are happy to have her here. So again, Leaders Talk is there to make sure that we communicate to our new, you can say, people who are entering into this industry and would like to learn more from the people who are there for the last 20, 25 years, 30 years. So we have at least now 6 sessions already done, and this is session 7, if I remember. And we're glad to have one of the experts. This time, she is Liz Kentish. Thank you very much for joining us today, Liz.
Thank you, Ali. It's an absolute honor to be part of this series of Leaders Talks. And I hope I can add some value to your audience today with some ideas about my story, my background, and some of the challenges I've come across along the way.
I am sure we're going to learn a lot. I'm always learning, being the host of this Leaders Talk. I've learned all the way. And the most important thing is learn, capture it, and try to use it whenever you are, having similar situation. So before we start the session, I just wanted to pass the good news to everyone attending our session today is that MEFMA launched our new amazing website. It's for you to navigate, learn, connect, and of course, use our platform for knowledge sharing. So please go to our website and enjoy looking at our upcoming event or previous events, and maybe you can see some of your friends in our gallery or look at the presentation or become a member and look at our various industry reports. And that is the good news. Now, let's start the session. We don't have a music or a promotion, so no problem. So I would like Liz to start the session by saying first, thank you very much for spending the time with us today. And of course, my deepest condolences to our, partners and people from UK for their dismiss. It's really sad, and may God rest her in peace. So I would like to start by knowing more about you, your background. How did you start into FM? Please, Liz, floor is yours.
Thank you, Ali. So I'd like to go back to when I was 5 years old, and those of us who've got children and grandchildren, we're always asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wish I could say that when I was 5, I wanted to be in facilities management. But of course, at 5 years old, I didn't know what facilities management was. My mother, when I asked her, she says that at 5, I wanted to be, some days I wanted to be an actor, and other days I wanted to be a social worker. So I've always been interested, I think, in entertaining people and also in understanding people. So when I went to university, I did my degree in sociology and modern languages. So again, this absolute fascination for people, for what makes people tick, why people behave the way that they do. In my early career, I worked for a motor manufacturer. I worked for a company that made fire engines. So there's a bit of a transport link. I then worked for London Underground, so the metro in London, always in roles such as continuous improvement. So I'm very interested in process, very interested in people. For 5 years, I worked for Reliance Security. And as a security company, we also had a facilities management part to the business. But because I was very focused in the security business, I didn't really know much about FM. They were in another building, they did other things. And then my managing director left Reliance to go and work for a company called John Lang, who had been a construction company, but at this point were investing in privately financed infrastructure. So they were building new health centres, hospitals, schools, prisons, police stations. they were financing things that the government really didn't have the money to do. So my managing director called me up and he said, Liz, I've gone to John Lang. They want me to set up an FM company. Do you want to come and join me? And I said, I don't really know anything about FM. He said, but you know about people. And he said, and actually, that's what facilities management is really all about. It's about the people. He said, everything else you can learn and we'll have experts around you. So that was 20 years ago. So I went to work for what became John Lang Integrated Services. And what I found, Ali, about FM is once it gets under your skin and into your DNA, that's it. That's your life. It's charted for you then. I love this industry. I left John Lang in 2008 and started Kentish and Co. And all our clients are in FM. I think what I found was I wanted to work with more and more people in this industry rather than just one organization, because I also have a hunger for learning and finding new and different and better ways of doing things. So Kentish and Co has been going now since 2008, and we have the opportunity to work with clients and suppliers all over the world. For me, it's a dream come true.
So what do you do in Kentish and Co, just for people to know more about it?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. We are experts in change management, but in particular behavioural change. So we work quite a lot with a client and their facilities provider to help make sure that their contract is a long-lasting contract. It's a bit like being in a marriage. You know, we want people to have a successful relationship. So we work a lot around collaboration, trust, giving people tools to actually make the relationship a successful one, because that makes everything better value, more efficient, more effective, more productive.
All right. So can we see it's more of organizational change or behavioral change, looking at what gaps are there between the different partners? So are you studying the service provider versus the client and how they can work together?
That's exactly it. So our process, the programs we run always start with a diagnostic piece. So it's really important to understand the levels of trust. So we have a global trust index that we run each year, but we also have a series of questions, Ali, that we'll ask about, you know, how much are you a trusted partner to your client, and the other way around as well. So we have qualitative and quantitative data. And I think data is so important, because when we talk about behavior, often people say, oh, it's the people stuff. And I think the more data we can have, the more people will understand the value that focusing on behavioral change, the value that can bring to both organizations. And of course, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to the client, the customer, because that has to be our area of focus.
Yeah, actually, normally people look at more of the technical scope of work and the SLAs and KPI, and they don't look at the soft side, which is the communication, setting the priorities, putting one vision, right? I think we are missing this a lot, because people just focus, get me a consultant, he will draft the scope, he will do the tender, and get them on board, and let audit the service provider, let him deliver what we want. But it's not about the service provider understanding what is the real need of the customer. The customer always don't understand his need, and at the same time, he's not so transparent to share his needs, or maybe sometimes I don't know what I need actually from you as a service provider. This is the asset, let's just go and do maintenance. But it's more than just maintenance. So please talk to us more about it, because this becomes very fun, because this is what we are missing when we manage our customer. Can you talk more about a case study about this behavioral change that you're aiming to do?
Let me give you an example of a pharmaceutical company, a global pharmaceutical company that we have worked with for a long time. And we went to have an initial meeting with them, and they talked about the watermelon approach. And I'd never heard this before. Okay. So a watermelon is red on the inside and green on the outside. And they said that the relationship they had with their service provider globally was like a watermelon. So on the outside, everything was green. So all the KPIs were, 100%, all the scoring was great. But they said, actually the relationship was a bit like a watermelon on the inside. It just didn't feel right. There was some red signal. So everything looked good, but it didn't feel right. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Ali, about the interpersonal skills. We call them soft skills, but actually soft skills makes it sound like it's easy, and it's not. We have to learn and we have to practice. You know, one of my colleagues always says, practice makes permanent. And I think that's the thing. And the more we practice these things, the better they get. So this relationship, they actually said they had been in a contractual relationship at this point for about 10 years. And although everything was, you know, green light against all the KPIs, it just didn't feel right. And so they wanted to investigate what the issue was. And at its very simplest, it was about a lack of collaboration and a lack of a common goal. Because, you know, when you're in contracts, particularly vested style contracts where there are agreed behaviours, everybody needs to demonstrate them, not just the service provider employees. The client has to behave in the same way. And you can undermine that relationship very, very quickly. So we all have to work hard. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. So we have to have an opportunity to openly talk to each other and say, actually, when you were late for that meeting, you disrespected the contract or the charter that we have. So the behaviour, Ali, is absolutely critical. And that's where we come in and we help people have very honest conversations. We help them agree how they want to behave jointly. And it has to be realistic because we have to get up and come to work and behave in this way every single day. So we want to make it easy and we want to make it human.
Yeah, I think this is very important. I used to be an HSE professional, and I used to say, we cannot police people. We have to change their behavior. They have to understand that by applying safety, they're protecting themselves. They are making people safe, not just themselves, other people. And the same thing maybe you are trying to do in FM is make both parties understand their roles. Before criticizing the other party, I need to understand, did I do my job? Did I help the service provider to be integrated, a real integration with me? He understands what I need. He understands my end user requirement. Sometimes there is hidden risk. I know about it, but I will not tell my service provider. He accepted to sign the contract. So I feel this is unethical. If you are an owner and you know there is risk of leakages and things that happen in your building, you need to share this initially with the service provider. I like this approach, Liz. I think this will be an amazing 1 hour. So this is a great case study. But if you know, looking at our region or worldwide, maybe 10% of the client will go and take it in this way. Let me do my job so I make sure my partner also can do his job. Let me help him so he can help me. Please tell us more about it. How did you become, you know, did you try to send a message and it works? You know, that is very important.
I think the most important thing about any program, any effort we put in to change people's behavior is it's not a one-time fix. It's something that you have to, everybody has to make it stick. It has to be embedded into the DNA of the partnership. So I think what we learned over the last 14 years is that much of the success of any relationship between a client and a service provider sits with the client. So there's two things I think that are really key. A great client will be very transparent and honest with their service partners about the organization, about the plans, because actually as a service provider, if you don't know that there's going to be 2 new buildings opening in 5 years or 1 building closing in 2 years, how can you plan your maintenance if you don't know what's happening? So that honesty about what's coming is really important. And the other thing that's really important is that the client is very clear about what they want, and then they get out of the way. And what I mean by that is when we outsource any of our services, if I've been managing cleaning, for example, and then I bring in a cleaning company, I've brought in the experts and I'm paying them to be experts. So I have to trust them to do that. And I mustn't be looking over their shoulder all the time and checking, because that doesn't show trust. I need to have humility as a client to step back, and then my focus becomes my organization, my clients, and it gives me more time to be strategic and less operational. And it's, for a lot of us, it's a real challenge, Ali, because we are so used to being operational. We are people who fix problems, we solve problems, and then we've brought somebody else in to solve the problem. We have to step out of the way. And that's something we hear a lot from service providers, is that they love their clients, but they really wish sometimes their clients would let them get on with the job they're paid to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think these are very unique learning. And I like the idea of what you said, the Global Trust Index, because this should be actually one of the KPI toward creating a relationship. I need to, please trust me. Give
Absolutely.
me, yeah, and trust doesn't mean trust me one day. You have to trust me for a good time. Let me do an evaluation. Let me come with to tell you what are the problem in your building. Some client doesn't want to hear the problem. Please solve the problem for me. But if without you, without me telling you, I cannot solve the problem. So I think it's a great approach toward FM consultancy, rather than becoming just a strategic from putting a structure, trying to put this interpersonal skills that you need in both parties. Am I getting it right? Is this what you are always trying to do through building relationship?
And being able to measure it, Ali, is key.
Yeah.
You know, we can get it right, but we have to be able to give evidence that it's right. The Global Trust Index, maybe I could send you a copy. Maybe you could put it on the MEFMA website, the last year's results, because I think something else we found with the Trust Index is, depending on the level of trust that we have, it also impacts on other things. So we can see a correlation between the level of trust and the level of mental well-being. For example, we can see a correlation between the level of trust and how motivated people are. And we can actually give you some suggestions, depending on where your organization is. We can say, well, actually, if you work at internal communication, then you're going to see an improvement in this area. So we've got quite a lot of data that I think will be very useful to people. We've published it in a very visual way, because I'm not very data driven, so I need lots of graphs and charts. So be more than happy to share that. And if MEFMA could share that with your membership, that would be great.
Of course, that would be amazing. And maybe we can do a session about talking more about, building this partnership approach. So going further now, trying to, through the last 14 years, you're trying, to apply something to organizations that have different personalities, different influence from different stakeholders. It is very challenging, right? So what do you think? What are the key to your success? What are the lessons that you have learned from all over meeting all these different clients, trying to make them work together?
The most important thing I've learned is that people are individuals, and we need to spend time getting to know people as individuals. We need to understand the common ground we have with them. I think the job is the second thing. It's human to human contact. So people laugh, we call it the hot chocolate moment. So I will often go and meet someone for a coffee or a hot chocolate, and we'll just spend an hour just talking, not about work, but about us as humans, our hobbies, our children, our dogs, whatever it may be. It's about human to human connection, because once we have that, Ali, we have trust. And once you have trust, you can build on that. So the strongest learning for me is spend time talking about each other, rather than going, we go into a meeting, especially on Zoom or Teams, and we are straight into business. Whereas, and one thing I've learned from being in the UAE is taking time to connect. And I love that. And that was a big learning for me. We don't have to talk straight away about business. We can talk about other things to build trust.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And this is what a successful facility manager will do, because you're not there just to look at a contract and read it. And I always tell my client, we can go ahead and read the contract and see, but it's all about me and you. How can we work together? How can I make you look good? And how can I be proud of what I am doing, serving you as an organization? At the end, we are serving one purpose, being a client or being a service provider. And this is what we want our, FM practitioner worldwide to know, that it's 90% of the job is human to human, as you said. 10% is your knowledge. So how can you improve into the human to human interchange? And I like this hot chocolate moment. I will use it. And of course, the watermelon approach, that is something that we don't want it to happen. We want it to be green from in and out. We don't want it to be red, because when you still keep that barrier between you and your clients, it's always, you don't know when he's gonna decide to say, no, you're not doing good. Sometimes it is, what do you think? I see most of the client, their evaluation of KPI is not really an exercise to really be fair. It's more reflection of his behavior. Is it true?
It's a difficult one though, isn't it? Because we're asking people, if we have quantitative measures, the number of failures of equipment, number of assets we've maintained, that's okay. But it's the how satisfied are you as a customer? That's a very human reaction. Yeah, so I think there should be a mix of both. I think we should have, the very data-driven, asset-driven measures, but we also should have some of the a great question to ask when you have a site meeting or a monthly meeting between a client and a supplier is, how is our relationship right now? It's a really good question to start a discussion, because then you'll see if there's some red behind the green. You'll know.
Let's do it now. Let's do it now. You ask me the question.
Okay, so I'd say, so Ali, how is our relationship between you and me as the client?
I'm not sure actually. Your team and the site, I don't know what they're doing, and I have pressure from my boss that the cleaning is not happening right. So really, I cannot answer this question. As a person relationship is good, but business relationship, maybe it's not me. I'm happy, but my boss is not happy, and I cannot, sometimes I have, to do a tender to get you out of the site because my boss cannot be satisfied. Maybe he doesn't see what we do. So how can we make this more clear to our boss that you're doing an amazing job? Sorry, we're making it like a movie now. What do you think of my response?
I think that's great. And then my next question to you would be, tell me what you think your boss needs. What does he really need in order for him to be comfortable and to leave you alone? So, because you know your boss well, I probably don't know your boss so well. So we need to talk together to find a solution, because often a client will say, oh, the cleaning's not good, my boss doesn't like the cleaning. And I'll go, oh, I'll go and tell my cleaners they need to clean better. That's probably not really the problem. Maybe there's something else.
Exactly. This is what happened to me in one of the contracts. I landed into this company and we were being deducted 200,000 dirham a month. So I said, you guys are not happy. I'm not a magician. I can always listen to you, and I make sure my team are at least very responsive to you. But please, your tone has to be easy. Treat my staff like your staff. And please, let's go on a weekly tour. Let's go. Bring your big boss. Let him walk with us the site every week. Let us see his observation and comments, and we're gonna work, with that. So this is maybe a good approach, not excellent, but it's a good approach to slowly bring back the relationship that is lost, and you're not sure how it is lost. Sometimes you are in the middle of a bad relationship for no reason. There is no, as you say, what are the rules that you should keep to maintain a good relationship? I'm talking about the behavioral rules that you should keep. One of them, I think, it's having a proper tone with your partner. If you're always shouting at your partner, giving order, how can he? So what else we should do to make sure that our partner, our client, is really listening to us. What do you think from your experience?
So I think one of the most important rules to remember, Ali, is don't take it personally.
Yes, nice.
The second rule is this is only a job.
Yes.
And that goes in line with number one. You know, most of the time, what we do in facilities is very important, but most of the time it's not life or death. So I think we have to remember that. I think the third rule is remember we are in this together.
Yes,
so
I like
we should talk about we rather than they or the client or the supplier. We should always use language like we. So you know, if we were doing a walk around on site, a site tour, then it shouldn't be, oh, your cleaning staff haven't done this. It should be our cleaning team. Okay. I think that's really, and I think the other important thing is ask questions of each other and listen to the response.
Okay, ask questions and listen. Yeah, I think these are very good to build a good relationship with your clients. And I like the idea is how is our relationship? This is how you start, you know, making sure that if he has something in his heart or he's not very transparent, he will say it. Yeah, I'm not happy. So you know, I think it's a great insight. And I remember one of the business owner in Qatar is a friend of mine. He says, Ali, I am an owner. I cannot go to client every week or every month. I go once a year as an owner, and I tell my client, are you happy or not happy? And I think he is doing a great job by spending at least one visit a year to a client and asking the right questions, building the relationship. And this is what we need to do, right? So let's.
Absolutely. I remember when I left school, Ali, so at 18, when I was finishing school, my head teacher, she took us all into her office one at a time and gave us wise words for the future. And she said to me, she said, she wasn't sure that I would be successful because I talk too much and I ask too many questions. And actually, I look back now and I've built a successful business on the basis of asking questions, because that's what we need to do. If we can't second guess what somebody needs from the services we're providing, we have to ask them, we have to really help them be clear about what they want. Because if a client can't be clear about their purpose and their vision and their strategy, how can we as supply partners, how can we provide that for them? So questions are key.
I like that. I think that's very important, asking questions. And if he doesn't have the answers to the question, maybe you can help him.
Yeah, ask a different question. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of insight from people sharing their insight about the topic. And what he is saying at Kentish and Co is Liz philosophy on people. I don't know
what's our philosophy on people? Well, we actually have a trademark phrase that we use, particularly in Europe. We call it corporate marriage guidance. So I truly believe that when we're talking about relationships between client and service provider, it's like a marriage. And over here, in my faith, before you get married, you have 6 months of instruction with the church. So you and your future husband or wife have a training, if you like, Ali, where you learn about communication, you learn about trust, you learn about how to deal with the wider family, you know, the mother-in-law and all these things. So I actually relate that to facilities management, because I think a successful relationship in facilities management is like a successful marriage where, you know, times sometimes are difficult. We have different interests. You know, I might not like my mother-in-law. We might have different views on how to raise the children, but, you know, we're prepared for those difficult times. And in facilities, it's very similar. So I would say our philosophy is, remember that this is like any relationship. You have to be committed and you have to work hard at it. It doesn't just happen magically. You know, you both have to be committed to it.
Exactly. So if the client is not committed, how to make him committed? I'm asking you different questions now. Sorry.
How do you make the client committed? It's interesting because often a procurement department will say, we need to go out to market. We need to bring in a provider. And so it's driven, I think, by the wrong reasons. I think if we outsource to save money, it's not really what what we should be doing. We should be outsourcing because we want to give our end customer the very best service. And we want to allow them to come to the workplace and do their best work. And so
Fantastic.
It's a challenge. You know, if outsourcing is led by procurement, it's perhaps not always as focused on the customer as it could be.
I agree 100%. I think you've answered it. To make him committed, he has to change his thinking. We have to give you value, and value is not just reducing cost. Value is, making people happy, making your asset sustainable, making sure that at least I achieve your objective as an organization. I help you to achieve your objective. So I think you've answered the question, how to make customer committed. And this is where we as non-profit association, we are trying to educate people, educate customer, and we need every single person who's attending this session, and of course, part of the industry, to educate customers and make them committed to the right reason of why we need FM in our organization, being in-house or outsourced. I had this question in my mind, but I didn't want to ask it. But I think you've stayed only 6 years in an FM company. You didn't want to stay more, and you immediately went to do your consultancy. Why? Why you didn't stay more into the integrated?
Okay, so this is I'm going to give you a very honest answer, because I think it's important to be honest. So my managing director, in my last year of working for him, we had my performance appraisal, and he told me that I had become unmanageable. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely, Ali, that was my reaction. And because at the time I was qualifying as a coach, I knew the importance of asking questions to understand the meaning behind what he said. So I said, can you tell me what you mean by unmanageable? And he said, Liz, you've outgrown our company. What you do for us, you need to do for the whole industry, because facilities management needs you and your thinking. And I thought, that's lovely. I was very flattered. And I said to him, but you just told me I was unmanageable. So 2 things happened there, Ali. One is it showed me the importance of choosing our words very carefully when we talk to people in our teams, because we can be very damaging if we choose the wrong word. Yeah. And the other thing was, he was right. I wanted to change the world. And I know it's a very big thing, a big ambition to have, but actually, by working with so many different organizations now, we have a small role to play. But if it's a pharmaceutical company creating oncology medication, for example, my team like to think that in our very small way, we are helping to save lives. So to be able to work with so many different sectors in so many different countries of the world, it suits our thinking. And of course, we learn as we go, because we don't have all the answers, but between us and all our clients, we can find the answers.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You have to choose your word, but you have taken his answer, more positively and proactively, and saw the potential. Some people might, unfortunately, put themselves in a corner because he says, I'm unmanageable, means I'm not, you know what I mean? So this is what we want to avoid in our career. If you have somebody giving you a statement, please don't demotivate yourself. Don't stress yourself. He give you something he sees on you. Maybe you don't see it in yourself. I've been in my career as well, where I've been bad words thrown at me, but I didn't take them badly, and I didn't quit FM because I heard these words, Sometimes they say, oh, you guys are managing cleaning. You're the cleaners. But please be proud of what you do. Right, Liz? What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think all of us on the call today, we need to think very carefully about the words we use. So, for example, I would say we should always focus on the performance and not the individual. So if somebody isn't performing well, let's say, for example, they're a site manager and something's gone wrong on site, that it's no good to say to them, you're a really bad site manager. That doesn't help anybody. But if we say, what we can see is happening here is that the level of performance in this particular area has gone down. What can we do to support you? How can we work together? Because if we attack people, then people feel they're not worthy and they feel they can't do their job.
Exactly. So it's not criticizing the person, it's looking at the gaps at work and trying to help to improve that. And I agree 100% with that. Mr. Ahmed is saying the relationship and commitment part of the knowledge as well, win-win situation. We agree with you. We have a question for you here. It's not a question. We normally don't take question, but I'm taking some question. Ahmed is asking, hi Liz, which kind of training that you are providing to client? I think she's answered it, but she can quickly tell you.
So typically, thank you for the question. Typically, we would run joint workshops where we would focus on areas that we've identified are critical to the success of the relationship. So we would do, if we can, face-to-face workshops where we talk about, for example, the psychology of commercial contracts. It sounds a bit odd, but so there's a fantastic movie. I don't know if any of you remember the movie. It's called A Beautiful Mind, and it has oh, someone will remember the name of the actor. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's based on the story of John Nash, who was an economist who went to Princeton University. And John Nash has been very influential. If you look at the history of commercial contracts and facilities, he talks about game theory. So often our training will be quite fun. We'll show a clip from the movie. Russell Crowe, I think that's his name. The actor. So we'll do a bit of that around the history of contracting, and then we'll move into some of the behavioral things, like how do we collaborate effectively, how do we learn to trust, but we'll also do lots of activities where people will understand, is my role strategic, or is my role tactical, or is my role operational, and what does that look like every day? I think the most important thing that I'd like to say about the training that we do with both client and supplier, we don't always do it like that, but if we do, we ask them to fund the training 50-50 so that both parties are fully invested in the training. I think that's, if we're talking about collaboration and partnership, it has to be that way.
All right, sounds good. And I think even forming a joint venture between two parties, maybe you can get involved and build up the right relationship, because joint venture, they quickly sign the contract or the joint venture agreement, and after 2-3 years the conflict starts appearing, right? So maybe this I think
you probably in the UAE you have so many joint ventures, and I think there's so much learning that you could share with the rest of us. I think it would be great for MEFMA maybe to run an event about what you've learned about joint ventures, because the rest of the world, we're moving into things like vested contracts. And I think there's so much we could learn from the approach in the UAE.
Definitely, we can run a webinar about joint venture. And also, I think something very important is the stakeholders management, because I think this is what we don't do. Who are our stakeholders? When we take over a contract, it's not just the one person in the client who's going to influence our scope, right? So stakeholders management, what do you think? How can we do it right when it comes to
Yes, it's a really good question, and I don't think we have 100% of the answer, but I think the most important thing is to identify who they are, and then to do, that matrix, Ali, where we talk about who's the most influential and who's most important, and then focus our energies on the people that have the most influence, and make sure we keep involved with everybody, but focus our energy where it will have the most impact. And I also have a bit of an issue with the term stakeholder management, because we can't manage these people. I think it's about having the right sort of relationship and the right level of communication. Because otherwise, we are all stakeholders, and we're probably on somebody's Excel spreadsheet somewhere, Ali, you and I, as stakeholders, and somebody's thinking, how am I going to manage Liz? How am I going to manage Ali? Well, of course they're not, but they can certainly build relationships with us and understand how best to communicate with us.
I agree 100%. Actually, we run some workshop in MEFMA. Part of the complex is stakeholders management, because at the end, you need to know you want to do your job, but a lot of people are influencing. And sometimes you're limited to just operational role. You cannot do tactical and strategic, because you don't understand who to communicate with and build the relationship with. And this is how we become a successful facility manager, is to understand who can influence your role from tactical, strategic, and operational aspect.
And do you find, Ali, that sometimes the most influential people are quite surprisingly not the people we thought they would be? So, for example, the executive assistant to the chief executive is often very influential, and we sometimes forget those people.
Yeah, even sometimes the T-boy.
Yes, because they know everything and they know everyone and are trusted by everyone. So it's finding those people who are influential.
Exactly, I agree 100%. Okay, Badr Salmin, he's one of our great, FM expert in the industry supporting MEFMA. He's saying from where we can learn more about Global Trust Index, how to do it and how to implement it. I think we have a separate session, but you can brief him a little bit.
Well, you can find the results of the Trust Index on the Kentish and Co website. If any of you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm very happy to continue the conversation because it's different for every organization. So rather than say one size fits all, would be very happy to talk in more detail with anybody who wants some more information.
I'm sure me and Badr Salmi, we would love to be your students for some time to learn more about it and spread this concept of really building the relationship from an interpersonal level rather than a technical scope or operational scope. So let's go to the next question, which is about the industry itself. Now you are here, you're supporting the industry, you're trying to make a successful model. So what do you think? What does it take for the industry, a newcomer, to grow in their career path and responsibility? As a person, I'm thinking about to enter into FM, or I'm in the first one or second year in my FM career. What do you think what does it take for me to grow in responsibility?
I think it's a really interesting one. And I think times are a little bit different now to how they were 2 years ago.
Yes.
I would always say that when you're new into your career, the best way of learning about the career and the organization is to sit next to somebody in the office who's been there a long time, listen to their calls, sit in on meetings to understand how we do things around here. Of course, with COVID, that wasn't possible for so many people. We were living like this on Zoom, and very difficult for newcomers to feel fully engaged and to understand the business. So I think things that you can do, whether you're working from home or in the office, are get a mentor, whether it's formal or informal. And I know, Ali, you do a lot of mentoring, formally and informal. And
I don't do anything at all. No mentoring.
Yes, I know you do. But, those of us who've been in the industry quite a while, we are more than happy to share our experience, because I would always think I would like someone to not make the mistakes I made.
Of course.
And if I can help them to avoid that, then maybe they can progress more quickly in their career. So I think mentoring is important. We have a plan B for FM mentoring, which is actually only for women in FM, because it's, that we always say plan A didn't work for bringing women into FM. So if you have any women in your teams, and this is to everybody on the call, who would like a mentor, it's a free of charge program. We match them with a mentor somewhere in the world, and they then have the mentoring relationship. So plan B for FM. And if you don't have a formal mentoring, then I would say just reach out to someone. They don't have to be in your company, in your organization. And of course, the other thing is professional bodies such as MEFMA and the IWFM and SAFMA and IFMA and CORNET. As a newcomer in the industry, I think one of the most important things is to join your professional body, but not just join it, get involved, join committees, go to events, go to conferences. Ali, you probably hear young people also saying, but how can I be on a committee? I don't know anything. I've only been in this industry a year. And I say, that's what we need. Yeah. We need the next generation to lead us, because everything's changing. Technology is changing. The way we innovate is changing. And, people coming new into the industry, we need them involved from the very start.
I agree 100%. And I think this is why we have Leaders Talk, because we want to guide you guys. And these are the advices that we always try to communicate with you. Be part of something bigger. Don't just isolate yourself in your company. And, sometimes if you don't have positive spirit in the company, come and join MEFMA and have bigger positive spirit that will make you work more proactively and get the learning in your job. And I think that's very important. We have, I think, if I saw Fiona ask a question, difficult question for you, Liz. How do you measure the success of your consulting work when it comes to an end with the client service provider?
Yeah, great question.
When you end up your consultancy, how do you measure it was successful or not?
So thanks, Fiona. So when we work with a client, we always start with the end in mind. So if you've read Stephen Covey, his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the 7 habits is to always start with the end in mind. So we agree with the client at the very beginning what the measures of success will be. And they're different for every client. For some of them, it may be reducing the number of escalations or change requests. That might be a really important measure for them. For others, it may be that at the end of 2 years, they sign a 10-year contract extension. That might be their measure of success. So the measures are different.
We lost you a little bit. If you can repeat the last 10 years contract, that was one of the measure, and then?
So hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yeah, now yes.
So the measures are always agreed at the beginning. It could be reduced escalations. It could be, you know, we want a contract extension. It could be employee engagement score. So the measures are always agreed up front. There's usually 3 key measures because that's a good area, a good number to focus on. And then we measure all the way through the program. And often at the end, we are pleasantly surprised because actually it's been more successful than the client thought.
All right, we have 2 more questions. We're answering questions. We're trying to cover, you know, how can we have the trust relationship built and measure through the entire life cycle of the client, from onboarding till post-completion? How can we have trust relationship built and measured through the life cycle?
That is a brilliant question, because often you build trust between individuals and then sometimes they leave, they retire, they go work for another company. So I would suggest, and it's just an idea, is when you have agreed behaviors, including trust and collaboration, when you recruit people to come to the client side or the supplier side, you recruit for those behaviors. And every time you have a meeting together, you cover those areas as well. When you're setting performance objectives, they're set around those behaviors so that you keep it alive, even though the people might change, the culture needs to stay that way.
Okay, great. Another question from Suha. If there is any failure or weaknesses in providing the service, is it necessary to exchange information with the customer about the deficiency or not?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask that. I'm all for honesty, but if it's a really small issue that you can just resolve, maybe you just get on and resolve it. And I don't know. Maybe the rest of the audience have some thoughts around that.
You know, as Lebanese says, it depends. Seriously, it depends on the situation. Sometimes you don't want to be too much direct with the customer, so he will react negatively and, you know, khalas, put an X on you. So you always have to look at the relationship. You know, exchanging information with customer is good, but you don't want to tell him you are wrong, not me. You tell it to him in a different way. Again, as Les says, it's not personal. It's not me versus you. It's the job. We are doing a job and we're working together to achieve something. So your question is more about pointing finger both ways, which I think should not be that approach. So you try always not to take it personal and to avoid that your client take it personal. Talking about deficiency is good, but in a constructive way. Is it? Do you agree, Liz?
I think so. I remember working for one manager who said to me, I don't mind if things go wrong, Liz, as long as I know before the newspapers know.
Oh.
You know, because sometimes things go badly wrong, and over here, you know, the media will pick up on something, and, you know, a security officer has been found asleep at his desk or something like that. So I think as leaders, we should choose what we tell our clients, but when it's something that can impact them or impact their organization negatively, we must make them aware of it and make them aware of the solution we've put in place.
I agree 100%. I agree. It's more about being a human. And sometimes I go to a site, and once I arrive at the site, everybody knows that I am there in the site. It's like there is a system. They tell each other, you know, we don't want to be scaring people. You know, we want them to do their job, and we look after them. And I always, when I go to a site, I need to ask, what do you need? Do you have, for example, toilet close by? Do you have a place to rest? Because this is how can we build the right relationship, being a service provider or being a client, looking at the human element part of it. Time is passing very quickly, Liz, and we have from Mr. Mohammed Hassan, we have a question. As you know, we are in an operational environment. So it has ups and downs. How can we sustain the client satisfaction within the fluctuation? Sometimes the client is very happy and he is not. So how can we make them happy all the time within the fluctuation? For sure, we are all trying to minimize this fluctuation. I like it, fluctuation. I don't know what does he mean. Maybe, you know, Liz.
I think, yeah, things go wrong. You know, we're talking about people, we're talking about machinery, technology, things go wrong. But if we have that good relationship with the client will understand that as well, because before they outsourced it to us, they had to deal with things going wrong. So it comes down to the relationship.
Yeah, I think, guys, we are not in a Q&A. This is a host, you know, we're talking about leadership, but we would love to answer the question because I think there is some good questions there. Do you think that FM should be primarily a passion than in the industry, or provide a service? Of course, you answer the question.
I think we have to remember we are a service industry. You know, people talk about we need to raise the visibility of facilities management. I don't think we do. You know, we come into this business to serve our customers, and let's remember that's what we're here to do.
But we have to serve them with passion. If there is no passion, so I think you know the answer. You need to be passionate about what you do. Of course, you are in the service industry, but you're going to be successful if you become more passionate about your client, about the service.
I like to think everyone working in facilities, I would like to think that they get up in the morning and they go to work to do the very best job they can that day.
Yeah, agreed. This is the last question. We'll go back then to our script. Mr. Mohammed, he's asking, as the FM contracting industry is recently getting driven toward low cost, which is a result of a very low bottom lines for the contractor, what action do you suggest from both contractor and client? This is another question. Client perspective to uplift the industry from commercial perspective. Liz?
Oh, Ali, we've had this conversation before, haven't we? This is such a difficult one because...
First, change the word contractor, please. We are not contracting, right,
partners.
Liz?
Partners.
Yeah, we are partners, exactly.
Everybody needs to make a fair profit. And if you look at most client organizations, the values that they have on their website and that they live by often say, you know, the people who work with us, we want them to make a fair profit. This is our company values. Sometimes we need to remind the client that this is their values. So, you know, here in Western Europe, big service providers are making single-digit profit before tax. So yeah, it's a very, very low margin business. But maybe it's an opportunity for the service providers to get together, even though they're competitors, and say, actually, when we get into a tender situation, let's agree that we won't bid below 10%, 12%, something like that. It's a very bold move, and I don't know if there's the appetite for it, but we have to find solutions, don't we?
Yeah, I agree. I'm too nice to people, Liz. That's my problem. I need to answer another question. We need to answer this. Nujum Nawaz, I agree to step away from other responsibility, and this is also help us to grow as well. However, how do we learn to do this, as we always have been involved? So he's saying how we can avoid becoming just operational guys and look more at human to human. How can we do that?
Well, obviously, I would say come on one of our training courses, but actually, I think this is where mentoring is so powerful. If you can find a mentor who has done that, you know, if you look at Fiona had a question earlier. Fiona's based in Dubai. You know, she's a very experienced account director with a service provider. You know, and there are people like Fiona all over the region, all over the world. You can reach out to these people and say, "Can you help?" Even if it's just a one-off conversation, or maybe it's an ongoing mentoring relationship. I think if you want to learn from people who have learned it and have been successful at doing it.
One more thing, Liz, because I think you need to build capacity. You need to take care of your operational responsibility and build extra capacity to do the communication and the human-to-human touch, to get the communication skills, building relationship, other stuff. Because if you don't do it yourself, nobody will do it for you. So if you just want to spend 9-10 hours in operational things and don't build capacity to reduce the time in operation and spend 2 hours in more tactical and strategic things, then you will never grow in responsibility. So my advice, it's like first day you run 5 kilometers. After 1 month, you can run 10 kilometers. So what we're saying, don't just run, change, do something else as well. You can do more operational things, but you stop and try to do more. We don't want to see soft human-to-human relationship and other things that will help you to grow, that will build trust and relationship with your client, understand their objective. And this is what, when we knock the door, it's not what service should I provide, how can we make you happy, what are your objectives, so I can align what I do to what you do. So I think that is very important. So I'll ask you the last question, which is, I think everybody is looking after this question, is what are the leadership quality that you need in your FM team? What are the leadership quality that you need in your FM team, or on myself? What do I need as a leadership quality to grow in career?
So I think these qualities break down, Ali, into 3 areas. I think you've got skills, knowledge, and behavior. And I think the knowledge that we need as leaders and in our team is, well, we have to be hungry to learn. We have to look for something new every day. I think we have to want to continuously improve ourselves. So I think we need to know what's going on in the market. What are the trends? What's coming around the corner? You know, we talk about Internet of Things, but we've been talking about that for 5 years. You know, what else is happening? What's happening to the real estate market? So we need to have knowledge about the industry. When we talk about skills, so I think there's a few things here. One is, Ali, as you alluded to earlier, stakeholders. We need to have the ability to engage with our customers and align our objectives to theirs. One of the big issues there is, if I were working for a service provider, I have 3 clients. I have you, my client, who's paying for us to do the facilities. I have my line manager in the service provider company. And I also have my commercial director who's tapping me on the shoulder saying, Liz, could you make some more money from this contract? Yeah. So it's a challenge to be aligned to the client when we have lots of stakeholders. And then the other big skill, Ali, that we need is to have a clarity of vision. Yeah. And to be able to translate that vision into day-to-day language for everybody else to understand. And then just going back to behaviors, it's exactly where we started this conversation. Can
you repeat, wait a little bit, because we lost you. We lost you when you said behavior.
And as FM professionals.
Sorry. Yes. We lost you for like 20 seconds when you started talking about behavior. You're still, I think we lost you again. We lost her.
Okay. I'm back.
You are back now, yes.
So I hope you can hear me now.
Yes,
can you hear me now? Oh,
yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So behaviors, humility, Yes.
Yes.
Humility, trust, collaboration.
Wow, amazing. See, we hear these things, and please write it down and focus on them, because again, skills, knowledge, behavior, and each one of these three domains, you need to work on them. Amazing, amazing, Les, amazing insight. And I think our young leaders, and of course, even sometimes experienced people, need to be reminded of these basic things that will make you successful and build a partnership approach, building a leadership culture that will make sure everybody is, contributing to the success of the organization. Thank you very much for very informative session, and we learned a lot from you, Liz. And of course, we're gonna come back to you and talk about the Trust Index. Global Trust Index is a very, very great idea to be, implemented, so we can at least close the gap in communication and, collaboration between client and service providers. Thank you again. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to our audience for spending the time asking the questions. It's another session of Leaders Talk. I would like to end up this session by giving you the mic again and give us the last advice for us to close the session.
So let me just say thank you so much, Ali, for being a great host. Thank you to the audience for all your very insightful questions, and please do connect with me. All I would say is, this is an industry we all love. Let's continue to love it, and let's encourage other people to come into facilities management, because we need fresh blood, and we all have the opportunity to educate the next generation. So I just want to say thank you so much. I've had such a lovely time today. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you very much for your time and contribution and sharing knowledge with everybody. Again, this is Leaders Talk. We are very happy to have you in this session, and hope we connect again more and more, learn more. And I like your idea of mentoring women in FM. I think that is needed, and we have very bright women in the Middle East who are working in FM companies, and I send them invitation personally to attend this session, and hopefully they are there attending. If they didn't attend, or somebody who will benefit from this, please share with them our YouTube session and broadcast session. Thank you again. We're going to end this session with a great thank you, Les, and great thank you to our audience, and see you next time. Thank you, Les. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.